What's up, everyone? Welcome to Happy Hour. Trey Lyle, Dalton Hopkins, Michael Massie here. Welcome back. We're back. Unlike some other things that we'll talk about in a matter of moments. Gentlemen, happy, first time seeing your faces in 2025. You two decided to go to New York without me. We won't talk about that, but decide to leave old Trey Lyle behind. You had to be stuck in a hotel room with Brian Dolan. That's how your year started. So how's your year going so far?
Well, that was definitely rough being stuck in a hotel room with him, but no, awesome front stretch retreat there in New York City / New Jersey, and we're all ready to bring everyone some quality content this year, and it's good to be back. I kind of missed doing this with you guys for the month off or whatever we had, but yeah, I'm actually ready. As short as the off season is, I'm actually ready for racing now.
Dalton, how are you doing?
I am great. This new year has brought on so many new things. We got a lot of stuff coming up down the line for front stretch. We got some big stuff coming the next few days, I guess you could say. But everything's going to be fantastic. This season's going to be great. There's not going to be any problems whatsoever. Everyone's going to be happy. There will be no bad decisions made at all, especially when it comes to NASCAR. So everything is fantastic. But in all seriousness, so far so good. I guess I can't really complain. But yeah, I'm excited for the new season already. I'm excited for 2 weeks from now, the Rolex 24. That's going to be a lot of fun.
So, yeah, I mean, you're going to cover the Rolex 24. This is how much I know about what's going on at frontstretch.com lately.
Oh, what? Me going to the Rolex?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's not really a huge secret.
It's not a secret. You live in Daytona.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going out of the way.
I'll be there. I was going to go there regardless, even if it wasn't for me covering the race, but I'll be there with Phil. He's our sports car guru. So, that'll be good. But yeah, this next week's going to be 2 weeks from now. It's going to be a lot of fun. Not going to be able to go to the Roar though. Going to have to go to a wedding for that.
Well, I hope you have a roaring time at that wedding. And that's how we'll begin today's podcast. So everyone sit back, relax, crack open that cold one, and yes, just so you know, sometimes we'll have Davey, who was a regular last year. He's unable to join us tonight, and also neither is Caleb Barnes, who is not at a Long John Silver's, but he's in Rupp Arena, which he might have gotten Long John Silver's before he went to the Kentucky basketball game, because it's actually a pretty good game. It's like a top 15 game, top 10 game tonight in Rupp. So he's rooting on his Wildcats tonight. So we're gonna have a looser format. I'm gonna take the reins for the start, and then we'll head over to Massie for the next subject, and then we'll head to Dalton to wrap it up. So we're gonna go over the three major rule changes in 20. I almost said top 25. Getting my bad. I host a regular show now, so I have to I'm in and out of flows of things. 2025 rule changes for NASCAR, which kind of just dropped unexpectedly, out of the blue. And there were three really big things that came out of it. First, which is something cool, and I know, Dalton, you wanted to talk about, is the open exemption provisional, is what they're going to call it. This would only come in play if the entry list for a Cup Series race exceeds 40 and a special or invited entrant is not locked into the race. So you ask yourselves, what would be a scenario like that? Well, it was announced through Project 91 that four-time Indy 500 champion Elio Castroneves is going to enter, which it's always weird that, side note, well, I'll talk about that in a second. Let me lay this out. Is going to attempt the Daytona 500. If he is according to Bob Pockris, and got clarity on this, if he is unable to qualify for the Daytona 500, whether it's speed or through the duels, he will be the 41st entry into that race. I'm having dyslexia with numbers tonight. 41st entry into that race. But in this exemption rule, if you are that 41st entry into a race, you are not able to earn any points whatsoever. So, Dalton, I know you wanted to talk about this, and I think it's a unique rule, a rule that will probably encourage more Project 91-like projects, just because, if they're guaranteed a spot in the race and points will never matter for Project 91, I think it makes it kind of interesting what can happen from here.
Yeah, out of all of the rules that were released, all the rules that were announced, I think this is the one that I actually have the most issue with. This is the one that I had the most issue with, and that being that this is starting to sound like it's almost like it's taking away a position from somebody, or at least it's a little bit. It's like not fair, I should say. I mean, Elliot Castroneves is obviously a legendary racer. He's somebody that has had, he's honestly one of the best in the world. I mean, I would even argue him being a 4-time Indy 500 champion, the biggest race on the planet. And he's won it 4 times, which is, only been done by 3 other drivers, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, I'm not completely caught up in my IndyCar lore, but this is a huge deal for him. But at the same time, we have a 7-time champion who is also going to be attempting Daytona 500 this year, or at least I assume, and he's not guaranteed in, which doesn't feel right. But Elliot Castroneves is. I agree. I do like the fact that this is going to encourage more outside, non-stock car superstars to come into the sport and give NASCAR a try, which I love seeing. Don't get me wrong. But it also means that this is something that it's almost like they're not paying. It's not fair to actual NASCAR legends or stock car legends who want to come back. Like if Rusty Wallace were to come back, I don't know who would possibly enjoy that. Certainly not anybody. Certainly not anybody on this podcast. But if Rusty Wallace were to come back and try to make a start in the Daytona 500, he'd have to actually qualify his way in. But Elio doesn't. So it's a little unfair to me. I don't necessarily agree with it. And I hope that when the time comes on Thursday night when they race the duels, I hope Elio just kind of lifts off the gas. At least maybe even during qualifying too. I hope he just kind of lifts off the gas and just kind of lets everyone else go ahead of him to make sure that we get a full field and he doesn't take up a spot he doesn't unnecessarily take up a spot.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you on this one. First off, I feel like it was fixing a problem that wasn't really a problem. We didn't really know it was a problem. That's why it was so out of left field, because there's only 1 week it applies, and that's the Daytona 500. Like every other week, you don't have more than 40 cars. So everybody's gonna make it. I mean, maybe in a perfect world, we get some more entrants into Mexico and the Brickyard and some stuff like that, but I don't really see that happening. And like you said, it just kind of takes away a spot, because the thing, I was kind of on board with it. I was like, okay, maybe if that encourages the guys, more international guys to come show up, then I'm like, that's a good thing. But the weird thing is, if he makes the field, it's only 40 cars. If he misses it, it's 41 cars. If you're going to do that, just lock him in and make it a 41 car. You locked in 36 cars already. Make it 37 and extend the field to 41. And that way you're not screwing over guys like a Carl Long or a BJ McLeod or Jimmy Johnson or Truex. And for those guys, I feel like they never should have gotten rid of the Champions Provisional. Those guys have given so much to the sport that one of them should at least be able to fall back on a Champions Provisional should they fail to make it. But I don't know, where it's just, NASCAR is kind of running like a cable company or cell phone company, where if you're already here, we don't really care about you. If you're not a customer, we're going to give you a great deal. So I'm not really that big on it.
So just to break it down, as DX we go, break it down. The possible entries, the ones that are confirmed are Yaley, Alfredo, whatever MBM's entry is going to be. We'll get to Mike Wallace in a second. BJ McLeod, Ilio, and then likely is something with Martin Truex Jr. with Tricon Garage, given the uncertainty around 2311, which is kind of weird to say. Jimmy Johnson, then a possible 15 with TBA, and then there are, we'll just say, more out there that are rumored. I mean, it's clear as day. There's an announcement tomorrow. That's just
that's it. That's all we're gonna say.
That's all we're gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
There's an announcement tomorrow, and that's all we're gonna say. In which our colleague Steve LeFew drops.
Steve, oh man, look at this.
Todd, I don't know how you can call it a great show. I have been awful to start, but I appreciate it.
Oh man, Todd, thank you for the kind words. Jeez.
And then Bob puts the 50 Army vet is iffy. So whatever that means, I guess that's used to be Mayweather's team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
It's what, 4 spots, right? Off the top of my head.
I'm gonna be a lot. I put my hands down, so I lost count.
No, 4 confirmed. Like there's 4.
Yeah.
36 guaranteed spots. 4 get 4.
Yeah, no, I know, but so is it 9 or 10 open entries?
Let's just say between 9 and 10, which honestly is awesome. I think
that is a lot. That is a lot. Yeah.
I think typically it's been 5? It's been
it's usually, I think it's 2 for the last 2 or 3 years. It's been 2 drivers get eliminated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a pretty decent amount.
Which maybe because of this rule, I wonder if they'll let, because it's very vague on how they phrase the rule. It's just open, it says special or invited entrant is not locked. So I wonder if Jimmy, I won't say Jimmy to a lesser degree because he's now raced the last 2 years and it's Jimmy's not been great necessarily. And it's just, I wonder if Truex doesn't get in on speed.
Mm-hmm.
Would they allow him in? Because I think they would. Because it's Cole Pern, it's Martin Truex. It seems to fit in that, special or invited entrant. And thank you, Phil Alloway, who you'll be with at Daytona. I will say this, Steve is right on this. The duels will be absolutely electric. Yeah. So
for the first time in a while. I mean, last year was pretty good, but the first time in a while, it'll be really worth watching.
Because the only
Keselowski one,
pushed his brother.
Yeah,
is someone who gets up now has to get up at 5 a.m. every day. I don't know if it's the best for Trey, but it's
suck it up.
Okay, I watched the Daytona 500 at 2 a.m. and got bombs thrown at me. Suck it, Trey. Shut up, Trey, you piece of...
Oh my, that's not what I was trying to say at all.
We're back, baby. We're back.
Oh yeah,
what a start. I got my groove back.
Oh,
y'all were all in New York playing Patsy and seeing Aaron. Well,
boy, okay. Let's address this. All right, we were in New York for a total of an hour. All right, this was.
I wasn't invited. You know when I found out after it happened.
First off, it was during. All right, and secondly,
if Brian didn't want to use Snapchat as much as he did during that meeting, then I would have not known till after. No, I'm giving a hard time. I'm not. I am glad to say that I am not in the. I am not in the upper management. I'm in management, but I'm not in maybe the upper management of frontstretch.com. I'm in the. I'm the jester. I'm the court jester. I feel like that's my good role.
That's Brian.
No, he's just the buffoon. Yeah, that is fair. I think it would have been y'all would have been there for 3 days if it was Brian and me in the same meeting. But I will say this, Dalton. If I was planning a trip to New York and I was planning to go see an NFL game, I would have made sure you could have come too. I would have just said that.
Yeah, I mean, those are some nice words. I would have liked to have seen. Would like to have seen an NFL game. I mean, then again, I'm a Dolphins fan, and I think.
And guess who the Jets were playing? The Dolphins.
That's what I'm saying. It probably would have been a conflict of interest. So, but kind of weird.
All the Dolphins fans left early, anyways. So really, you only missed like 3 quarters.
Don't blame them.
It was a bad 2 weeks for Aaron Rodgers fans because they got to see his last game probably, and then they got to see their Packers get their butts kicked by the Birds. So
if they're a fan of him, they're not really a fan of the Packers.
He's trying to claim.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't my fault. We would have had you there if we could have.
If we could use the first name we had for this podcast today, it was that man's fault. Let's just put it that way. I'll tease it as that. All right. Getting back on track. We're doing great so far. I hope you missed us. I'm glad the front stretch garage is popping with comments.
Should we dive into those other 2 rules real quick?
That's what I was about to transition to. If you just let me, I do know what I'm doing here. Like, okay. So the other big, any final thoughts on this? We're good, right? We're good. I just want to be sure we're not forgetting anything. We're back. Okay. Next rule. Ding dong, the DVP is dead. And I'm just going to read this out because it was kind of confusing. NASCAR is making changes to the damaged vehicle policy that will be exclusive to the Cup Series in 2025. Effectively, you will no longer be forced out of the race due to flat tires or other minor issues that prevent drivers from driving back to the pits on their own. The 7-minute rule, 8 minutes at Atlanta, will remain in effect. However, what happens when the clock expires will change. At that point, the car will have to be pushed behind the wall for additional repairs. Cars can either drive behind the wall on their own or be towed behind the wall for repairs and still be eligible to return to the race. Previously, going behind the wall for any reason while on the DVP clock was an automatic retirement from the race. If a car is driven or towed back to the garage, there will be no time limit on the repairs. There will still be certain aspects of the car that cannot be changed behind the wall. Example, engine changes mid-race are still forbidden, but crash repairs can be made. If a driver on the DVP clock leaves his stall with the time still on the clock, but the clock expires before he gets off pit road, he will still be able to continue after serving a penalty. Previously, that would have been a retirement. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I mean, I already know the rule.
But I was reading it for people
I zoned out.
Well, I was trying, this is not the Dalton Hopkins show where we, we're an audience of one.
You asked the question.
It was more for the audience. It's kind of a rhetorical question.
They can't respond.
They have, it's a comment. Wait, first of all, it's a comment section. Second, it was a rhetorical question. All right.
Yeah. People in the comment section, if you get it, then let us know.
Okay, everyone blink twice if you get it.
Ha, ha, ha,
Very good, thank you.
Massie, what do you after the playoffs last year with all the baloney that we saw in terms of the DVP rule? What do you think?
I'm happy. I'm so happy. Like you said, the playoffs just exposed this rule so badly, where you had guys that the only thing wrong with their car was they had 4 flat tires. And they got parked. It was just the most ridiculous. And then you had the deals where like some guys got towed and others did. Like some got taken to pit road so they could change their tires, others didn't. It was just a whole kerfuffle. And I'm glad it's gone. And then remember there was a race last year, might have been the year before, where like Bubba Wallace, it was like 2 quick caution. He wrecked in 1 caution, was on the DVP clock, and it was like another quick caution.
And he couldn't get minimum speed.
He couldn't get minimum speed, and they parked him. And like his car could have easily kept going. So it was just one of those rules where like, yeah, it was a flawed system. Also, I missed the days where like a car would come back out there 100 laps down, and the fans of that driver would start cheering, yeah, and like that was old school NASCAR right there. So that's back now. I'm glad
I don't know if that's still going to happen, but I do think this fixes a lot of the gray area that was in the rule.
I think it will happen because we haven't seen it happen in a very long time. I think it is a great thing for NASCAR to do something like this. This was a win for NASCAR. I mean, it's a very good decision. It means, first off, looking at it from 1,000-foot view, it means that NASCAR really is listening they really are taking into consideration. They are willing to change certain rules that are unpopular. And I think that's a great sign. They've made a lot of changes in the past that fans have been wanting, and this is just the latest one. I agree with Massie, everything you said. This means that teams are not going to be as desperate anymore and do some stupid, crazy stuff to get back out on the racetrack and, maybe cause even more trouble than what they were before. Like release debris onto the racetrack or something that wasn't completely prepared because they were trying to finish repairing the car before the DVP clock was over. So that's going to fix that. They no longer have that pressure on them. At least they won't if they don't want to retire. And then secondly, it does kind of bring out an additional possibility of some good stories. Massie said people cheering when a driver comes out. I have never seen that in person. I've never heard of that happening. I'm sure he has, but the only time that except for one exception, and that's Dale Earnhardt in 1997 Daytona 500. So I can see that happening nowadays, though, especially with popular drivers who are still in the playoffs, trying to get as many points as humanly possible, getting back out on the track. And especially in those elimination races where they might be out by like 1 point, but they come back in the race. Like, even though they're like maybe 35th, 27 laps down, it's still fun to watch because what if somebody crashes and then suddenly, they have to maintain pace to say that's still an interesting story to me. So that adds a new element that fans can see, that we can pay attention to from now on.
Yeah, I felt like with this rule and the rule we're going to get to next, it cleaned a lot of gray area. Like, teams now understand, like, and there is a drawback. Like, teams are still going to try to make it in that 7 o'clock, 7 minute window as best they can, because if you go behind the garage, you're going more laps down, where theoretically, if it's under caution, you might lose 1 or 2 laps. But I also think you're right in terms of it won't press them. Like, go back to when, like, granted, this ended up helping Chase Elliott, but like Chase Elliott's team, like, basically just not tying the bumper down and the bumper flies off at the Roval. Granted, they probably would have kept it that way because it ended up helping him, but those sort of things won't happen. And I wonder, with this rule, will NASCAR police it in terms of, like, now that you have more time, theoretically, you have to be sure that this thing will secure. Like, if that Elliott thing happens, I wonder, they'll be like, all right, well, you blew your one chance, like, you're parked. And I would be okay with that, theoretically speaking. Like, hey, you had as much time as possible to get this fixed, theoretically. I know you wanted to get out there quickly, but you had as much time as possible, and you didn't, so you're screwed. You get one shot. Best not make your chance to blow. Pretty simple. All right, moving to our next rule. To me, the most interesting one is the change to the waiver system, or a clarification to the waiver system. So basically, it will be NASCAR's changed some regulations in regards to the playoff waivers. Essentially, if it's a non-health related waiver, such as a suspension, Kyle Larson last year, the driver will be stripped of any playoff points they have accumulated throughout the season so far and are ineligible to earn any playoff points for the remaining of the season. However, they can still make the playoffs, and I think a win would count. It's just they wouldn't get the 5 bonus points. I thought this was the most interesting thing because Kyle Larson is doing the double again. And it now, I think, will force him, if he's in the situation like he was last year. Granted, I think it's changed because now he said he's now run the Indy 500. He's going to Charlotte instead of staying for the Indy 500. Like, I think this was good on NASCAR to just put a line in the sand. And more importantly, I don't care about the Larson thing as much as I think there had to be some punishment if you got suspended, in terms of like you get suspended and you lose your playoff points, that's going to make those instances where we saw the suspensions, the Austin Dillons, like even, well, he wasn't suspended, but the name a driver that was suspended last year. I can't remember.
Well, 2 years ago was Chase Elliott.
Chase Elliott. That's a good example. Chase Elliott on Denny Hamlin. Like, imagine Chase losing all his playoff points, as well as not like that. That makes it. I am all for that. I think that was a really good move by NASCAR. What do you think, Massie?
So I think we can effectively call this a Kyle Larson rule, because it really feels like just kind of a petty.
It's a react. It's a reaction.
Yeah. And look, on one hand, I am really glad that they actually have something in place this year, because it's felt like forever between the time that he missed the Coke 600 and the time they granted him a waiver, and nobody knew what was going to happen. And it just, the conversation around that just got so tiresome. And yeah, it was a hot topic last year. Now we have a clear-cut answer. The interesting thing, here's the problem I have with it. Let's say Kyle Larson misses the Coke 600 again, but in the regular season, he wins 5 races. Let's say another guy misses 25 races, and in his one race, he wins. They will start the playoffs with the same amount of points.
But that's assuming the guy gets the waiver.
If he gets
I don't think they're going to give. I don't think they're going to give a guy a waiver who missed 25 races unless he's hurt.
Okay. Maybe I went too extreme. Let's the Kyle Busch situation.
The age. I think Tyler Ingram was. It was. I think Tyler Ingram was brought up that he made the truck playoffs, but he missed the first 3 races because he didn't turn 18 yet, or something like that. Yeah, and he would have been in that situation.
Or like Tony Stewart, his last year, he missed like the first.
That was injury.
Yeah, that was injury.
Yeah.
Like injury, you can't control. I think age is another. Like age is in this in terms of you would lose your playoff points.
But even still, it's like I feel like the guy that won 5 times should be rewarded more than the guy that won once. And then like I feel like a guy that misses 10 races should be punished more than a guy that misses 1 race.
But here's the thing. You are right essentially, but now that everyone knows the exact consequence, like Kyle Larson did the Coke 600 or made that decision to stay at the Indy 500. Granted, I think all 3 of us can agree there was about like they were very rest assured they were going to get the waiver because it's Rick Hendrick, like plain and simple. But I think there needs to be like NASCAR needs to say if you are one of our 36 drivers, you are our, you're our face. You're the face of our sport. You are what we market, and we need you at every race, and they need to understand it. And in my opinion, now that it's clear and you understand the consequence, I have no problem with it. I personally, and I think I think we're going to see less suspensions in terms of, I think we're going to see less, like, I think a suspension is now even bigger because there is actual punishment. Because to me, missing a race is a punishment, but if it's a driver that is already locked in the playoffs and keeps his playoff points, it really doesn't matter. But if you lose all of those points, then you're truly costing your team, and that is where I'm all for it.
I think that no matter how you look at it, my only gripe is the fact that the way that they worded it is non-medical waivers or non-medical for non-medical reasons. You will lose the playoff points. Is that did I get that right? Is that how it was?
Waivers sought due to driver injuries, illness, age restrictions, or family events, i.e., birth of a child.
Okay.
Are still free. However, driver seeks a playoff waiver due to being assessed a suspension or outright skipping a race. So it would be Kyle Larson, like Kyle Larson last year. Not, I think Briscoe was on baby watch at one point. Like a couple drivers were like, for example, Bubba Wallace is, I think it was Kansas, the last Kansas race. his wife had their baby that day.
Right.
And like, if he theoretically missed that race for it, he would have been fine. I know, like, Tyler Reddick's wife is pregnant. Like, if that happens, he's fine.
See, here's the thing. This is going under the presumption that Kyle Larson should have not gotten the waiver. I disagree with that.
I
think
agree.
He should. I'm glad he got the waiver because what Kyle Larson was doing was not bad. Like everyone's acting like
better for NASCAR.
He betrayed NASCAR. It's like no. The guy stayed at the Indy 500 because he was the biggest story there, and he was promoting NASCAR. I guarantee you, the moment the Indy 500, we saw the viewership. The viewership numbers were up on both ends, mostly because of Kyle Larson. I mean, there was
look at the All-Star race. I think the best example was the All-Star race. Like, you had all these fans watch qualifying, watch him qualify 5th, which to me is one of the greatest, like, him being his first time qualifying at that speed, going 5th, is like one of the greatest racing achievements I've ever seen in my life. Him flying on a helicopter and going to the All-Star race, and he was Kyle Larson in the All-Star race. Like, he was still really good there.
Yeah, see, that's the thing though, is that the fact that they specifically noted certain things that will be excluded or will be included in getting a waiver and will be forgiven in a waiver. That's good. I think that's great. The problem is that this is not a specific thing to say, because realistically, there's 1,000 different reasons you might miss a race, not just illness, not just family reasons, not just for, what, or injury or whatever. There's 1,000 different reasons you can miss it, such as running a race that, let's admit it, is bigger than the one that was being run in NASCAR and helped NASCAR in the end. So I don't think he should be penalized for that. That said, I don't think it'll be a problem this year because, like you said, Trey, he's already run it. He'll probably – but what happens if, I don't know, let's say Ryan Blaney wants to drive a Penske entry this year? What happens if he has to stick around? Now he's going to lose the playoffs, or he's going to lose all his playoff points? I feel like that's just a little unfair. So
I also wonder the part you're ineligible for playoff points. That is a hard thing, but I do think if you're Kyle Larson, knowing, like, you feel like pretty confident you can win every round, you're like, I'll just go win.
Well,
and that
and that's the other thing, is that you're not getting banned from the playoffs. You're just not getting the points that and let's face it, the round of 16, a guy like Kyle Larson is going to do just fine. Okay.
It would be the round of 8. It would be the round of the 8 in the championship, which ironically is probably what cost him this year, is that he didn't do that race, the Coke 600, didn't get a couple of bonus points, didn't win the regular season title. And maybe that's ultimately what cost him.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I feel like the punishment was already
exactly
that. Like, I wish they would just do. I thought it was great when they had the top 30 rule, or just make it top 25 in points, and you could miss whatever races you want. If you could still get top 25 in points and win a race, you should get in. Like, the one that still irks me is the Grant Enfinger one, where he missed a race because he didn't have a ride and still got top 10 in points.
See,
and so, like, would they let him in now with this new rule?
See. That's reason number 987. And you might miss a race.
965,000
minutes.
That's how many times someone missed a race. Whether it was for family or date. I almost said Davey.
All right, before we butcher this, it's for Davey Seagull.
So it will be interesting. I think this is going to come to, like, frankly, I am betting on there won't be a suspension before the Coke 600. I also wonder this. I think here's another reason. Kyle Larson is, like, he might be the true most popular driver. We might have a Dale Earnhardt Bill Elliott situation again. Like, he might be the true most popular driver, and Chase Elliott wins the vote every year. Like,
yeah, I think
just given
just don't vote every day.
Yeah, like go look what he does every week. This year, unlike most any Coke 600, what is unique about this Coke 600?
Oh, it's the first race on Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if NASCAR's like, we have to do everything we possibly can if rain comes to make sure Kyle Larson is at that race.
To make sure there's no gap, there's no bridge that gaps both races.
Which Justin Allgaier was doing a awesome job in the that was a cool story. The Coke 600 was Justin Allgaier like probably in the best car he's ever been in the Cup Series, and he was doing awesome. And it was
he deserves another Cup race.
Agreed.
Wonder if smooth.
So I think that in the end, NASCAR, to wrap everything up with these rules, I think everything went great. These were all fantastic decisions. With the exception of maybe the what was the wording behind it? The one with Elio.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Special or invited entrant.
Yeah. All right. Well,
now,
I half like that. I'm 50%. I'm on the fence about that one.
Here's the crazy part. NASCAR is going to promote the crap out of the Truex entry.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it's essentially going to be a Joe Gibbs 5th team. Like, let's be frank here. But theoretically, this would be Tricon's first ever race in the Cup Series. Like, this is not even them going to the Xfinity Series. This is the biggest jump up they've ever had. They could make a mistake in the duel. Like, one guy who's never done a Cup race could make a mistake in a setup. Granted, it's Cole Pern running things, so I have a lot of even like
he hasn't called a race in 5 years though.
Yeah, I still think he's pretty good. I mean, he's still one of like a Hall of Fame level crew chief. Like, granted, 5 years ago, but I have a weird suspicion that Truex will get that exemption. Like,
I think he'll make it on speed and it won't even matter.
Yeah, I think he'll be the
Yeah.
Well, Toyotas don't qualify well. I think he'll race his way in. We'll see. But you're probably right. All right. One final note about these rule changes. There were no, and people have said it still could come out. There was no tweak or change to the playoff format. So assuming it's going to be the same in 2025, I feel like that we always kind of lean towards it being that, and they would change it in 26. But any thoughts about that? Shocked, not shocked? Wish they maybe, or do you think it's a chance it's still coming?
From the last time I heard anything about it was that there will likely be a minor change for 2025 with a bigger change occurring in 2026. I don't know what that's going to look like. At
Chris
this point,
Buescher exemption.
It's going to look like they're just going to put Chris Buescher automatically in the round of 4 or the championship 4. But in all seriousness, I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm not holding my breath. If it's going to be announced, it's got to happen within the next couple of weeks because they need to give these teams a little bit of notice to make sure they get a bigger heads up. But I think 2026 is when we're going to get the really big overhaul.
Yeah, I would say if you want to make any minor changes for this year, just maybe like increase what the regular season top 10 get. Like instead of regular season champ, instead of 15 points, maybe they get 20. Yeah, just a little bit to help those guys that were consistent all year. You know, like just I don't know, maybe like second gets 15, and just going down the list, each one gets a little bit more. And this Trey just died.
I did. All right, moving to our next topic. Some sort of, I guess, nostalgia play was announced as MBM was announcing Mike Wallace to run for the Coca-Cola for the Daytona 500. But ultimately, I believe yesterday, NASCAR came out and stated that he is not eligible due to his lack of recent races in major professional sports. I'm going to read the MBM statement. NBA Motorsports can confirm that NASCAR has deemed Mike Wallace is not eligible to compete in the 2025 Daytona 500 despite 11 previous 500 starts and several super speedway wins due to lack of recent races in major professional motorsports. We are devastated for Mike and the Wallace family that this opportunity will not come to fruition. And then they basically say, if you want to drive, please sponsor us. So do you think Front Stretch could let me drive in the Daytona 500? I would kill it.
You kill something.
You would kill that. Yeah, kill something.
Myself. Massie, I'll leave the floor for you.
Yeah. So when I heard this was announced, I thought it was crazy at first because Mike Wallace is in his 60s and he hasn't driven a race in 5 years. But it's one of those things you can take. I thought take it or leave it. I didn't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I had a problem with them not letting him do it. And it's just because the standard is to let someone like him race. And I'll go back to 2021. Derek Cope he's in his 60s and he drove in the Daytona 500.
But he won the Daytona 500.
He did win the Daytona. I did think that was funny in that release. That at the end of it, like Mike Wallace signed it with like I'm a 3-time Daytona winner. Just a little jab right there. But yeah, so Derek Cope hadn't driven a race in. Let me pull up his page real quick. I got a couple tabs here and mix them all up. He hadn't driven.
I wonder what of.
Yeah. All racing reference. He hadn't driven since 2018. And they let him in the 21 one, which 3 years, it's 5-year difference here. So not a huge difference. Travis Pastrana, 2 years ago, had never driven a cup race. He had driven truck series races 3 years before that, just 2 truck races. I think he drove the truck race at Daytona that year as well. I think they made him do that, which is cool. The glaring one, and this is going back a little ways, is Mark Thompson. Mark Thompson drove the Daytona 500 in 2017 at the age of 65. His previous cup start before that was 1992.
Hey, you were alive then.
Barely. Now, he had driven, what did he do? He did some truck races in 2016, but 3 truck races. But still, he hadn't been.
He wasn't going to make the race. Can we be real here? Sorry to interrupt. That was your Michael Massie stat corner, and we got the first joke of that for 2025 in there. He wasn't going to make the race.
Yeah, but I just feel like you should have the right.
Yeah, I agree. I probably lean towards agreeing with you, but I think it came out that he hadn't done a intermediate or super speedway since 2015.
That's probably true, yeah. But I feel like he gave Elio the option.
I was in high school.
I just wonder if they gave him the option to do the ARCA race. I feel like if he'd done that, he'd been fine.
Because SVG had to do the ARCA race. Elio's doing the ARCA race.
Exactly.
Although Elliot doesn't have to do the ARCA race, so
because he has a special permission. Well, that's I think getting your license and getting that provision is 2 different things.
Well, it is, but the point being is that this is the outcome of what happens when bureaucracy supersedes common sense. If Mike Wallace climbs into a Cup Series car or any kind of race car whatsoever. See, the whole reason why this rule is in place is because, oh my gosh, he hasn't been in a car in so long. He could be a danger. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's been forever. It's like, okay, let's do the math here. All right. He's done 197 starts in the Cup Series, 497 starts in the Xfinity Series, 115 starts in the Truck Series, 21 in ARCA. Okay. I did not do the math, but that is nearly 1,000. It's up there. I mean, I think it's probably in the 900s. But that
stat corner.
Yeah, but Do we really think that Mike Wallace is going to be a danger to anybody?
He was going to win
track? I'm not saying he was going to be running up front, but it's like Massie said, he should have a shot. He should at least have the opportunity, the chance to go in there. Like, this is a guy who's got, this many decades of experience, and we're just going to throw it away because he hasn't been in a car in 5 years. Like, really? It's common sense. Like, we're slaves to these rules that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, but we're going to let Helio Castroneves in a car who's never been in a NASCAR race whatsoever, only because he made an ARCA start. Or, well, not anymore because he's got the special rule, but we did it with SVG last year. So it's the lack of common sense that really frustrates me with this.
So I think Helio provides a special exemption given he is a four-time Indy 500 champion.
Well, yes,
you can't compare him so much. And you can't compare SVG, who won his first Cup race, to Mike Wallace. Like, I get your point.
To me, Pastrana is the one that sticks out to me.
But also, Travis Pastrana is one of the most famous athletes in the world.
Well,
but if Michael Jordan says he wants to run the Daytona 500,
I bet you NASCAR would do it. I guarantee it.
Probably would, but
that's Michael Jordan. If
they probably would. But should they?
If LeBron somehow can convince Fenway Motorsport or Fenway Sports Group, be like, "Hey, put me in a car with RFK," I bet NASCAR would say, "Hell yeah, it's LeBron James."
Like they would, but should they?
No, I agree. I'm just saying you're using like some pretty extreme examples.
Yeah.
Like, it would be the Joe Schmo you mentioned who got in is the better example. Like
Mark Dahl, yeah.
If they allowed,
that was a different leadership then. So
if they allowed just some random, I will say this, Mike Wallace is a part of an historic family in NASCAR, the Wallace family. Michael Massie's hero is Rusty Wallace, and I think they should have let him in. But I think you're using three very special people you can't compare it to, because it's maybe the greatest race car driver to ever race in the Indianapolis 500, like the best person at that event in Helio Castroneves.
Mike Massie's gonna fight you.
AJ Foyt. It's AJ Foyt. But my point being, he's won 4. Like, he's in the conversation for the greatest at that event. Like, that's my point. Not that I'm saying he is. I'm saying he's in that conversation because he's in the 4-time winners club.
Sure.
Who also, well, it wasn't Roger Penske that is funding this, but I bet you if Helio needed to, he would talk to his old pal Raj. Then you have Travis Pastrana, who's one of the most famous athletes on the planet because of his X Games and that stuff, and SVG, who won a Cup race in his first attempt. Like, those 3 deserve to get in, and I get them doing the ARCA start or whatever start. I'm okay with that. I think Mike Wallace should get in, but it's kind of hard to compare them to those 3 because those 3.
How many wins at Daytona does SVG have?
I don't care. Like, here's the thing.
But they should.
They provide a plus value to NASCAR, while Mike Wallace, no offense, does not.
So we should just throw away the fact that Mike Wallace has been in the sport for almost 30 years now.
Remember,
just because he's Mike Wallace and not SVG, and he's not Helio Castroneves.
I'm just saying it's hard to compare them.
He's just not famous enough.
Yes, that happens sometimes.
No, I don't agree with that. That
happens in all of sports sometimes.
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. That's unfair. It's extremely unfair.
That's life, buddy.
So you're telling me if Brad Pitt said he wants to be quarterback for the Chiefs this coming weekend?
No, because Patrick Mahomes is the best. You're using no. If you wanted to,
if Brad Pitt wanted to be quarterback for the Giants, then okay.
Yes, you know what? That might be an upgrade. Let's be real here. That might be an upgrade.
Yeah, and that would be really, really stupid.
Yeah, that's different. It's football. Like, they don't need.
No, it's really not, though.
But football doesn't need the public. Like,
but
football's the most popular thing in the world in the U.S.
That's not what I'm talking about, Trey. If Brad Pitt came in and wanted to race a car, and you're saying
Wait a minute. Brad Pitt is racing a Formula One car, like not during a Formula One race, but Formula One is giving him more access than they've given anyone.
That's a movie. Movies aren't real.
Movies aren't real. Still something.
It's not. It's not. Okay, in that case, if Tom Cruise wanted to race in NASCAR,
do it. I would be all game.
But not Mike Wallace, who's had almost 900 starts. Yes, you had. That has been your argument this entire time.
No, my argument.
Mike Wallace
timeout
should not be because he's not famous enough. That has been this entire conversation for the last 5 minutes.
No,
I got you dead to rights. I got you dead to rights. Yeah,
freaking talk. All right, my argument is you can't compare Mike Wallace to those three guys.
I'm not.
But you are. You're saying they can get in, but why can't Mike Wallace? I'm like, you can't compare them.
But okay, you know what? Here, let me go ahead and try. How many Daytona wins do any of those three guys have?
0.
Okay, how many Daytona wins does Mike Wallace have?
I guess 3 because he wrote it on his
So it sounds like he should actually be in.
Yeah. I remember he almost won the Daytona 500 one year, too. He was like up there.
So did Dave Blaney. I mean,
Dave Blaney.
So I want to preface this, which I said all along, that I think this was dumb and NASCAR should have just let it happen. I don't think he was going to make the race. That's just it was more of an equipment thing than anything else. And the fact he's been out of the race car for so long. I just think you can't compare those three guys because they are going to get special treatment because of who they are, not because of the situation they're in. And NASCAR gave them hoops to jump through, and they're going to do it.
It feels like they made a stink over something they didn't need to make a stink.
Yeah, and they could have made it really simple. MBM probably has an easy Xfinity car they can roll out and just say, Mike, run the Xfinity race or whatever. Yeah. Like, that's what they should have done. And here's the thing. If that happened, NASCAR should have stated, we offered him the pathway to do this, and they didn't. Like, that's the thing. Like, yes, you in the basis of society, you might be right, but I think they should be viewed as a vacuum. And also, with SVG, with Pastrana, and with Elio, they are making them do something. Granted, SVG technically didn't do the ARCA race until after the Daytona 500. That was because of weather. But they're making them go through a hoop before they theoretically could race in the Daytona 500.
But not Mike Wallace.
Well, we don't know. We don't know if
they just shut him down immediately. They were like,
we don't know if NASCAR said
chance.
Mike Wallace could have been like, Mike Wallace could have thought, I'm offended. You have to make me race in ARCA, and said. And then NASCAR just didn't say like that. That could Massie mentioned that at the start. That could have happened. We don't know that.
We have funding for Cup and not ARCA.
That's a comeback for Trey Lyle.
It's really not. But that's not what he said though. That's not what happened. So,
but we don't know that because would he have said I was offered the chance to do the ARCA race and not like that? Would have made him look bad.
That's what, the Carl Long, like, since like 2009, it has looked like NASCAR's been out to get Carl Long, but they also like to look like the victim sometimes too. So, like, you play this up as the victim and you get people's sympathy. You don't admit the ARCA part if that is what happened. But no, Mike Wallace needed me to enter because he's more famous than I am. So they've been so busy denying me that they would have approved him.
Front stretch car coming in 2026. It's just all right. Should we move on? That was fun. I think that was one of our first true arguments on this.
It's really fun when Trey has a horrendous take on something, and I just decide.
I don't think it was that bad of a take. I think if you go up to saying.
I'm not saying. Look,
my argument is you cannot compare Mike Wallace to Elio Castroneves. I don't think that's a bad argument.
It's not an argument. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I'm not comparing him. Yeah, all right. We need to move on.
You are essentially
We need to move on. We're going to keep repeating ourselves.
All right. The CW booth was announced today, which I think is going to be the most interesting broadcast because it allows the Xfinity Series to be on. Guess what? And you know what? sometimes I win arguments on this podcast like years down the line, and I have finally done that. Michael Massie, your antenna. What channel does it get?
Well, when we
Nope.
initially
What channel does it get?
it now gets CW.
So just say it. Just say it. Trey was right. Trey was right.
He's doing everything he can to get some kind of win tonight.
I gotta win.
For him, though.
Call me Jameis Winston because I eat the W.
No, CW. I acknowledge CW has always been a channel you can get over rabbit ears. Now, if you're out in a remote area like myself, you might not be able to get it over rabbit ears. But apparently, maybe they upgraded their tower in the past 6 months because
that would have been the Richmond one that upgraded their tower, not the CW itself.
Right. The Richmond place, sure. So yeah, I get over antenna now, which is exciting.
So Dalton, do you want to tell us who's going to be in the CW booth?
Yeah, sure.
I can do it if you want me to.
You've been doing it so far.
So it is Adam Alexander, which was always the rumored one by Play-by-Play. And then I don't think shocking, Jamie Murray. And I think a little surprising, but, he did say he was stepping down from full-time racing. Parker Kligerman coming out of the pit reporter booth into the broadcast booth. Pit reporter booth. What am I talking about? Pit road.
Close enough.
To the broadcast booth. Maybe with the CW, if they do a bunch of remote broadcast, it is a pit road booth.
NBC had a booth, didn't they?
Peacock Pit Box.
Yeah,
they had but I don't think Kligerman was ever on the Peacock.
No, I think you're right. I'm just saying.
So what do you think about this, Captain?
It's good.
It's great.
All right, moving on. No, I'm personally very happy for Jamie McMurray. I think he has been. I mean, I'm really happy for all of them, but I'm really happy for Jamie McMurray because I feel like he has provided some of the best analysis I've heard out of any of the driver media that has, retired driver media that has come forth. He's really good at articulating his point, enunciating his words, and saying and describing what's occurring on the racetrack and describing what a driver is thinking. I really like his insight. I like PK, not because he's just kind of a outgoing guy, an extroverted person, but he is also very good at analyzing things. And I think that is what we need. We don't need somebody who's fun. I need somebody who actually who's telling me what's occurring. I need somebody who can touch the ground and tell me that the water is in fact wet. And that is what PK provides. And Adam Alexander, I don't think there's any kind of, I don't think there's any introduction needed. I'm very happy that he is going to be returning into the main commentator role because he's been overlooked for a little while now, and at least in the Cup Series, I should say. But he's been overlooked for quite a while now in the Cup Series, and he's a very talented reporter, a very talented commentator, broadcaster. I'm happy for him as well.
Yeah, I will miss the Fox having the drivers in there. I always thought was neat. But one thing that I think, Jamie Mack is really good, and you touched on perfectly. I think Adam Alexander, is a really good play-by-play guy and is really good. The one important part about Parker is, and I'm going to I have a comparison for this, is he literally just got out of the car in that series, and the car is not very different, and he competed against basically every top guy that's coming back. He knows how to compete against him. The Austin Hills, Jesse Love, Mayer, Creed.
You can do it. You can
Carson Quapple, Connor Zillich, Justin Allgaier, all basically every contender outside of maybe William Sawalich is, I think maybe he did 1 to 2 Xfinity starts. Parker knows how to race with them. And I think that's going to be a really good key. The reason you go back when Tony Romo first got in the booth at CBS, Tony Romo was so good because he, just finished playing. So he knew basically what everyone ran. And
I don't know, Trey. I don't know about that one.
No, I'm talking about when Tony Romo. Well, all right, Tony Romo is not the worst retired quarterback that is in the broadcast booth. I think one is riding name alone, and we'll be done after this year. Let's just put it that way. In the words of Andrew Marchand, everyone wants to cover sports media, but my point being, when Romo first got out of the booth, like you go back to that, was it 2019 AFC Championship game between New England and Kansas City? Like he was nailing every play. It was like, it's gonna be a run to the right, Jim. But it was awesome, and it was the first time in my life I actually liked Tony Romo. It was weird. It was a weird feeling, but that's the insight you're gonna get. Like I think Junior was so good when he first got in the booth because he just got out of the car, and just getting out of that car, like and it's kind of rare to get a guy just out of the Xfinity Series that has broadcasting experience that can do this. I think he's going to have such a unique skill set for what I think is a product that, if NASCAR can sell right, will be really important because they are lacking star power. And if they can get their younger stars, like their up and coming stars, on make this their version of college basketball or college football, where now you're a fan of racing, you get to see like that what makes like college basketball and football important, college football even more now. Like you see these guys grow and then become into the NFL. Like look at Jaden Daniels with the Commanders. Like everyone remembers him at LSU. Now with the CW being such available, like guys are going to remember. Oh, I remember when Sam Mayer raced for the Haas Factory team and won this race, and then went on to X Cup ride, and that like it's different. It's kind of back to when every race used to be on Fox, even the Xfinity Series, and I think this is a really good booth and on a really good platform, because the CW in the back half of the year last year gave it a really good spotlight because it was typically followed by football, college football, and that's always a good thing, even if you get to watch your team blow a lead.
We don't need to talk about that, Trey.
inside the booth.
Yeah. That sandwich in between football, that is a huge slot, and I feel
it's the same booth. It's gonna be the only booth that's the same throughout the whole season.
Yes.
Maybe FS1 trucks,
but they might rotate people a little bit.
They sometimes have Trevor Bain
Jamie Little versus
Jamie Little versus.
Well, I guess Adam's not there anymore.
Well, yeah. So.
Well, he might still be with Fox. We don't know. Maybe. But I guess not.
Yeah. That seems like a lot though to do both series. But yeah, I love the booth. I think it might be the best booth of all of NASCAR. Because like the Fox one wasn't really working. NBC's really good. NBC, I'm not knocking them at all. And you just don't know what to expect with the Prime. And,
I think the fact that Prime and TNT are going to be the same, and it's Junior and Letarte. And did they say Rick Allen? It's Rick Allen, right?
I don't know. That's the one I thought was going to be Adam Alexander, and then
they haven't announced the play-by-play. I think even if it's Adam Alexander or Rick Allen, I think the fact you have Junior and Letarte is it's going to be so, like, I have high confidence in that because those two can feed off each other perfectly. We've already seen it. Yeah.
I still think this would be the best booth just because Adam Alexander, I think, might be the best play-by-play right now. Oh, no. Lee Diffie. Lee Diffie's the best than Adam Alexander. But he's really solid.
Wait, here it is. I got it. It is Adam Alexander. It's Adam Alexander, Steve Letarte, and Dale Earnhardt Jr.
He's going to be a busy dude.
Yeah. How does he have
Hey, you know what that means? I will say this. That gives me encouragement because I was afraid the CW would have remote races. If Adam's doing the booth for those, at least those 10 races, because I'm assuming for when Amazon, like, is it the first half Amazon has the practices and the second half Max has the practices?
Yes.
In qualifyings. I'm assuming they're just going to use whatever TV booth has that.
Yeah.
Is my assumption. Probably. They're not going to fly out Adam Alexander and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Steve Letarte every week.
Yeah. But so Double A, he's really good, and you saw it with just the way they would have a different driver in there every week, and he would work so well with them. Him
and Jamie Mack have worked together, like in the booth.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Chemistry. Jamie Mack, when he did the rotation before they had Harvick when they were rotating a driver in with Boyer and Mike Joy. I thought he was one of the best. So I'm really excited to see him in there. And Parker is captivating. He's an entertaining guy, but like Dalton said, he gives you great information. Like anytime I'm just scrolling down my feed and I pop on, I come across one of his clips from his podcast. Like I'm not seeking out to listen to, but like he catches you right away and just like sucks you in for whatever he's talking about. It could be something you don't even care about. And I feel like he just has that ability to like suck you in and make you interested in what he's saying. And like you said, Trey, fresh out the car. I was saying a few days ago, like if CW is smart, they'll go after Parker Kligerman. And for once, I was right about something. So yeah, that was really, really good booth. Excited to see who they get for pit reporters and stuff too. So yeah, it's gonna be it could be a situation where someday down the road, maybe they might get higher ratings for a race than a cup race.
And we'll end it on this. In honor of the new play-by-play announcer for IndyCar on Fox, Will Buxton. An announcer is someone who calls the race. That's a Drive Survive joke. Thank you.
Never watched.
Well, Will Buxton gets made fun of for being very
I get it.
Massie, you redneck. You. Only American racing for me. I want my wheels covered. Okay?
I like the Indy car.
That's because it's in America.
Yeah. They got the open wheels.
None of this Great Britain.
They got the Canadian race. They're in Toronto.
Yanni's Grand Prix.
NASCAR's in Mexico now, so I mean that's not entirely.
Well, on an episode that came together literally in less than 24 hours, we have gone an hour and 7 minutes. Feels like we're right back. We'll be back in a few weeks. 3 weeks from now, something like that. Sounds right.
Probably after the Clash, I guess.
After the Clash or before, we'll probably have to do an episode before the Clash because we still need to give our 2025 predictions, and so we'll do that, and then we'll have some we'll hopefully have some fun guests for you. If you have an idea on a guest, let us know at Trey Lyle VT, at Pitlane CBT, and at M_Massey22. That will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. Good night. Goodbye. Whenever you're listening to this, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Happy Hour.